This week's episode brought to you by the Communicore. Want to spend a week in Southern California with your favorite Communicore overlords? We thought you did. Visit CommunicoreWeekly.com, click on the Events tab to learn about the Communicore, happening April 27th through May 2nd, 2014.
Communicore Weekly. Come on and get geeky. We bob around boats and five-legged goats. Communicore Weekly. You might get some freaking. You waited all week. I'm sure you already know that it's the greatest online show.
Hello and welcome to Communicore Weekly, the greatest online show. I'm George.
And I'm Jeff, and I'm super excited because we just announced the Communicore, and I know it's the sponsor for this week's episode, but we're super excited for it. And
Well, you know what we didn't explain is that the Communicore is not a mythical beast with horns.
no, it is not. We did say that in an episode. If you're not subscribing to our iTunes feed, if you're just watching this on YouTube, go to the iTunes feed. It'll be in the links for this week's show as well to hear the little promo we did for it. We did talk about it not being a mythical beast. We just said it was a Communicore. So there is that.
I figured we just got to throw that out there.
Just in case. And
But talking about other Communicore goodness, we got
Yes.
something really cool.
we now have a Communicore hotline, so you guys can call
Sweet.
and leave us messages whenever you want, and when you want you guys to, because you can call, and if we like your message, we'll play it on the show. So
And if we don't like your message, we'll make fun of it in private.
we might also play it on the show as well. One
And
of the
then
two.
make fun of it.
Yes, exactly,
Okay, that's cool.
exactly.
Okay.
You can call 424-785-GOAT because that is our phone number.
Nice.
And
Nice.
for those of you who are too lazy to figure out the numbers for yourself, like I am, it's 424-785-4628. And that is the Communicore hotline. Call it, leave a message. We'd love to hear from you. Give it a call.
And what's that number again?
424-785-4628. Can you guess what the area code is?
424. Is that like the Philippines or something?
It is not. I'm
okay.
paying respect to our background because we're both straight out of Compton. So it is actually Compton, California.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And that way people can call it and leave us messages of any sorts.
Exactly. So give us a call. We'd love to hear from you.
Step, jump, and skip. We took a trip, and this is our trip.
So this past weekend, I was able to finally visit the Walt Disney Family Museum up in San Francisco, and it was spectacular.
Really?
It was really, really good. And the downside was that we only got to explore it for like two and a half hours because we were there for an event with Rolly and we had a presentation that we had to give. So I made everyone get up early so we can get there when it opened so we can have as much time in the museum as possible. And as we're going through it, it dawned on me that there was no way I was going to be able to see everything in the museum in the 2 hours that I had. Because it's just, there's so much. And, Keith Gluck has told me before that you need at least a day and a half to go through all the stuff. And he is not lying. There is so much in there that it would take at least 2 days. It's a full day museum without a doubt.
It's a full day museum. So, but do you think you could handle like 2 full days, or would you want to do a day, go do something else in the area, then come back and do another day? Like break it up a little bit, or you think?
No, I think for like real Disney fans, Disney fanatics, spending 2 days in a row there is the best way to go about it because
Okay.
Like a lot of other museums, there is tons and tons of stuff to stop and read and look at and interact with and watch, and it's a gigantic story and you just want to take it all in at once, and for that to happen you need the time, and I think doing it 2 days in a row, you can kind of get the better gist of the story that way. But overall, right off the bat, super impressed with the entire museum from top to bottom. I did walk through everything, but I didn't get to stop and read everything, but I did walk through the entire museum and I loved it. The first area where you buy your tickets, they had a lot of his various awards. It's where the story of Walt begins. And then when you go into the museum, it talks about his early years, his family growing up, when he went to the war, and then you get into an elevator. And the elevator is themed like a car from the Santa Fe Railroad, where he was on the train, and where he came up with the idea for Mickey Mouse.
Okay. Okay.
So when the elevator doors opened, I was like, what is going on here? It looks like a train. This is really weird. But, and it takes you up to the second floor. You get in. When you get out of it, you start with the Alice comedies, and you see clips from the Alice comedies all on the wall. It's when he first arrives in Hollywood. I'm sorry, it's not the train when he came up with Mickey Mouse. It's when he first came out to Hollywood. That was my fault. I apologize.
It's the one from Kansas City.
Yes. So please don't jump on me, cadets. I apologize for that one.
Well, it was a test. We were making sure the cadets were
Yes,
listening.
exactly. I'm glad you're paying attention.
That's what it was.
So the doors open, and there's the big Hollywood sign right there, and then you learn about the Alice comedies, and then how that went, and then you get a little bit of Oswald and how he came up with Mickey Mouse. They had the first or the earliest known drawing of Mickey Mouse in the museum, which I thought was very, very cool. They also had this really cool interactive exhibit that let you do the sound effects for the Steamboat Willie cartoon. So Alex and my brother were actually like doing it to the cartoon. It was really interesting to watch them do it and to see how hard it was to synchronize sound to a cartoon.
Sure.
I was really impressed with that, though. That was pretty neat.
Wow. See, we would make really bad noises, wouldn't we?
We probably would, but it would be a lot of fun, I think. One of the things I also was really impressed by, I don't know if it was an original version or it was a replica of it, but they had the multiplane camera there.
Okay.
And it's a big thing. It's in the gift shop itself, but it goes all the way up to the second story. So you can, when you're up on the second floor, you see the top of it, and you can actually look down, and you see the different planes of film and scenery, and it was unbelievable to see it. Like, I knew it was large, I just didn't know it was that big before.
Wow.
And that was really impressive.
It sounds like the whole the Walt Disney Family Museum is all of it's just tied together.
Yes.
Floors, everything.
I mean, you're literally walking through Walt's life from the beginning to the end, from the second you step into the museum all the way to the very last room.
Wow.
Very, very impressive. Most of my time was spent in between two different places. There was the section about the animation strike, and then when Walt went to South America.
I wonder why.
Obviously, Three Caballero stuff was in there. It also included in that section was their work during World War II and all the propaganda films that they did. Mm-hmm. And they had original posters from some of those films where I thought was fantastic.
Wow.
Martina kind of wanted to steal one of them. Not going to mention which one, but it may involve a dictator's face.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then the other room I spent a lot of time in, I don't know what it was called, but it was an interactive room. They had a bunch of screens, and I thought every screen had like a different topic on it, and it wasn't until later that I realized they all had the same topics. You were able to interact and go through all of them.
Okay.
And they had like concept art and trailers and stuff. It was broken into categories, but obviously once I found the Three Caballeros category, I went through every single thing in there. Tons of concept art. There were scenes from the movie. There was trailer, behind the scenes photos. It was really, really cool. So, I mean, that alone, I could have stood in front of that screen and played with it and went through all the categories. That alone could have taken me a day, without a doubt.
With all the content that's available through it then?
Yeah.
How many screens were there? Was enough to handle 15, 10,
5 or 6, I think.
There were several?
Maybe?
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. So, I mean, there was enough for, when there's a moderate crowd in there. Because there was other stuff in that room, too. Like, they had the camera that filmed 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea when they were actually in the water. There was a lot of cool stuff in that room, too. And I'm sure most people wouldn't be standing in front of those screens all day like I was. But that was pretty neat. But
then Keith would walk up and say, "Move along."
Yeah, move along. Nothing to see here. Move along, please.
See here, because he sounds English or British when
he does. I have noticed that before.
Good. Saving Mr. Gluck.
Mr. Gluck. I think the room that was probably the most impressive. It had the spiral, little walkway in it, but it had a lot of stuff. You start at the top, and they had the Lily Bell was in there from Walt's backyard, and they had a small replica layout of what his backyard railroad looked like. They also had the original model of the Fantasyland castle that Marvin Davis did in there in this nice little globe ball. But what everybody comes away from it remembering is the model of the Disneyland of Walt's imagination.
Oh yeah, because you had posted a photo of that on Facebook.
Yes, and I'm glad that they took away their no photo policy, because I took a ton of photos of that model. It was unbelievable. Because technically it represents a Disneyland that never existed. So, Space Mountain's in there, but it's from the original concept drawings where the cars move outside of the building.
Oh, yeah.
So that was really, really neat. There was a little Walt at the back end of the castle that you can look through the castle to see, standing there. I mean, it was unbelievably detailed. It was kind of interactive. They had little elements that like lit up and did stuff. I could have stood there for hours staring at this model, because there was so much to it.
It was different from the model of Disneyland they had at the at Disneyland in the Main Street.
Yes. As far as I know, it was different. I may be mistaken there, but
okay.
It was
that one was
very
an
impressive.
actual representation of what Disneyland looked like.
Oh no, yeah, that one's still there now in the Opera House where Mr. Lincoln is. Well, yeah, that one's still there now, and that one's an accurate one of Disneyland from way back when. This is what Walt imagined it to be, and it was unbelievable. I wanted to take it home with me somehow. I don't know how I would have done that, but I wanted it, and to me, that was the greatest thing to see. And on the bottom floor of that, they had a lot of stuff about the World's Fair. They had a mold of Mr. Lincoln's face and part of the animatronic body. There was a hidden Rolly. There's a picture of Rolly and Walt and Tower of the Four Winds. And as I'm looking at that stuff in the bottom, there's this pattern on the floor. I'm like, oh, this pattern looks really familiar from somewhere. And that, as I'm walking around and there's some Epcot stuff there, I realize, oh, the floor is the original model for Epcot, the city.
Jeez.
It was really cool too, because it's a nice little subtle thing that a lot of people, I'm sure, won't really notice. But I thought it was a nice little touch that they had that there.
Oh, and, that's fantastic.
And unfortunately, the last room, or the last two rooms, were about the death of Walt Disney. So you walked into this one room, it's mostly wooden walls, and there's a small fake TV set, and it's just people that knew him talking about his death. And there's little phones that you can pick up, and you can select buttons about who you want to hear, talk about Walt and, how his passing affected them, which was really sweet. And the very last room of the museum are just these stark white walls with video screens, and they're just quotes from people about, how Walt affected their lives, be it pop culture people, other Imagineers. I mean, it was pretty unbelievable.
Rather stirring, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it was, even for the short amount of time we were in there, it was kind of emotional. It was very well done, and I really have to applaud them for an excellent job of what they did.
Well, before you get to the presentation, the reason you guys were there, so your brother and Alex were there as well.
Yes.
During the tour, and they seemed to be okay with it, because I know your brother's not a huge Disney fan.
It seemed at first they were a little iffy, but as time went on, I think they definitely got more and more into it. And even, my brother said how impressed he was with the entire thing.
Okay.
And, I definitely think it's something for people of all ages to come and enjoy. I thought it was really well done.
That's a good sign then for all of us Disney enthusiasts. They could go over where we could take our families or other people, and they still would enjoy it.
Yes, absolutely.
They may not want to spend 16 hours there, but...
No, not like we would, but I definitely think it's worth it. But yeah, we were there for a presentation with Rolly. Rolly gave his Learning for Walt presentation. Packed house, sold out all the tickets. I got to meet Diane Disney Miller and Ron Miller. They were both there. Super, super sweet, super nice, the nicest people ever. They stayed for the presentation. Diane even asked a question at the end of the presentation during the question and answer session, which I thought was really, really cool. And, we heard from the program coordinator that it was the first standing ovation that they received in all the time they've been doing presentations there. So I thought that was really, really nice. Job well done. There were a couple stories that Rolly was telling, And I was kind of nervous, the audience in general, but mostly because Walt's daughter was in the audience and he was telling these stories. And every time I would look up and see her in the back, she was laughing. So I was like, this is perfect. This is great.
Well, Diane's always been one who's wanted to humanize her father.
Yes.
Whereas, the corporation wants to make him the myth of Walt Disney. So I think she appreciates everything as long as there's a ring of truth to it.
Yes, absolutely. And again, I really think the museum does an excellent job of making him a human. And, again, I've said it many times before, he is this great figure in pop culture history and, Disney history, but he was also a human, and this really humanizes him a lot, and it was excellent to see how well done the museum was. And if you're in the area, go see it. Please go see it. You need to go see it. And maybe ask for Keith Gluck as a tour guide. Just saying.
He's a nerd, he's a geek, but we all like to hear him speak. So listen up to the words from his speech. It's George's Book of the Week.
A lot of the Communicore cadets collect Disney theme park items, and some, of course, branch out into other areas of the company like animation, watches, stuffed plush characters, but there is so much more out there. This week's book is Disneyana, Walt Disney Collectibles by Cecil Muncie. And this book was published in 1974 and quickly became one of my favorite reference sources. I've read about K. Kamen, Kamen, for those of you who are not familiar with it, and how he started the franchise business for the studios, but I had no idea about the number of other people that were involved or the number of different collectible items that there are out there. This book is really big. It's 11 by 8 inches and 1 inch thick with a ton of photos. Granted, most of them are black and white, and of course it covers pre-1974 collectibles because, Cecil hadn't invented the time machine at that point in time. There are a couple sections that are full color, and a lot of the photos are from the archives. They had to actually go into the Disney archives in the 70s, early 70s, to get photos of these items. But it's really incredible to see the sheer number of things that were produced. And I wasn't really sure what to expect when I started reading the book, which is probably why it was so enjoyable to me. Muncie has really done an incredibly in-depth job of looking at the history of the franchises and the franchisees, the evolution of merchandise, and how the business grew into the Disney consumer products that we know and love and spend so much money on today. It's really quite eye-opening, and it should be considered the definitive work on Disney collectibles. So we see the company today, and Muncie's able to take us back and compare it to the late 20s and early 30s, where there was only 1 or 2 items that were being sold with Mickey's likeness. So in addition to some of those early things, it also covers fishing kits, paint sets, scissors, lamps, clothing, school supplies, belt buckles, and so many other things.
To barge in for a second, a lot of these things were actually on display at the museum, so it's kind of interesting to hear you talk about this stuff now that I literally just saw it.
Fantastic. You should have taken the guide with you.
I should have.
And say, yes, I want one of these.
Curses.
I want one of these. I want one of these. Foiled again. So the first official licensed product, which is covered in the book, was a children's writing tablet with Mickey's image on it that was produced in 1929. This thing was incredibly successful. So Walt and Roy set up Walt Disney Enterprises on December 16th, 1929. And then they hired K. Kamen in 1932, and the franchises really took off after that. You really follow the history of the consumer products division, for lack of a better term to call it, from the initial Mickey dolls that were produced by a woman who lived in California to the first attempts overseas in England that Walt and Roy just hated. And they kept writing letters back and forth talking about the quality of the Mickey Mouse dolls just weren't there. There is so much information about all the people that worked with it, and it just surprised me. This is an amazing history of how Disney products were introduced and how they changed over the years, and it's just a part of the company that you don't think about somebody talking about. This book is a must-have for anyone who's serious about researching older collectibles or is really interested in the history of the people that created the products and policies, so to speak, of the Disney franchise system. And this week's book It's called Disneyana Walt Disney Collectibles by Cecil Muncie.
Sometimes you might see it, sometimes you don't. Hey, look, what's that? It's a five-legged goat.
Right at the end of Main Street USA at Disneyland, there is a baby care center. And on one of the walls of the baby care center is a picture of an adorable baby. Quite cute. That baby is actually none other than Walt Disney himself. I kind of have to give credit to Cadet Rory Osborne for this one. I met him over the weekend at the museum. He was been sending me goats that we can possibly use. Most of them we have already on our list of goats to use, but I wanted to give him a shout out for this one because I thought it was a good one.
Instead of paying him money, we should give him a
Exactly.
shout-out.
Shout-outs
that's
are
not
better
bad.
than money.
See, when you said baby care center, I thought, is that a place you take your babies to get like their oil changed and their...
Yeah, every 3,000 miles.
Okay.
That's when you take them
not
in
too
for a
bad.
tune-up. Get their tires rotated, the usual.
Well, thanks so much for watching and listening.
Yep, be sure to leave us a comment and rate us on iTunes, and now leave us a message on our phone number, which again is 424-785-4628.
So if you don't want to leave us a voicemail on the Communicore hotline, you can always email us at communicoreweekly@gmail.com.
You can also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/CommunicoreWeekly.
And if somebody wanted to call us, what's that hotline number again?
Well, again, George, that number is 424-785-4628.
Fantastic. So follow us on Twitter. I'm at Imaginerding and he's at Jeff Heimbuck. So for Jeff Heimbuck, I'm George Taylor.
And for George Taylor, I'm Jeff Heimbuck. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time on Communicore Weekly, the greatest online show.
Too shy. Communicore Weekly is part of the MicePod network.